What's going on, everybody? Republic Cinema here, and in this video it's again going to be another checklist about some Studio Series figures, just specifically the ones that need remolds. So in this one we're just going to focus on the movie toys, which is basically the main line of the Studio Series. We're not focusing on the 86 or the Gamer Edition because those are kind of still like relatively new and they're still on the early stages, especially Gamer Edition. So far I've got 55 on this list, technically not including repaints. So without further ado, let's get to it. So starting off with the obvious on the list, also being the very first Studio Series figure ever, that being the Studio Series 01 Classic Camaro Bumblebee. Again, he does look good in both robot mode and alt mode, but I think it's time for something new. And it also didn't help for this figure that he had some QC issues. That being some parts were a little loose, other parts just like to pop off real easily. So yeah, I think it's time for something new. It honestly wouldn't hurt if this guy was just basically the same engineering of the Studio Series 49 Bumblebee, just a complete reshell because, the alt mode. And his accessory easily comes on and comes off. It's not something to replace the arm. That was a cool concept then, but now it's kind of annoying. Next on the list is Stinger. Again, looks good in both robot mode and alt mode, but there are some QC issues, that being the arms tend to wear off and the side piece on the left of the arm tends to break sometimes. So in the future, it would be great to see a improved version of this figure where not only he looks just as accurate as he did in the movie, but the engineering for the transformation is somewhat genius. Next on the list is the obvious SS04 Ratchet. Great first attempt, not so great QC or kibble management as well. And this guy needs to be a Voyager class with both of accessories. Not this, one accessory now, the other accessory later. That needs to stop. Both of his accessories, Voyager class, make it happen. Now, I didn't put the SS05 Optimus Prime on this list because technically he got a remold long time ago. More on that figure later. And next on the list is the Voyager class Starscream. Again, it's a great improvement from the original Dark of the Moon Deluxe, but it's not all that accurate, and it would be great to see a slight improvement on the robot mode. And he comes with all of his accessories. I think that's one of the issues I have with this figure. It's basically kind of like Ratchet. He should come with all of his accessories, and I think much like Ratchet, his scale should go from Voyager class to Leader class, but I'll leave that for you guys to decide. And next is SS08 Blackout. You're probably scratching your head on why I added him to the list, but here's the thing about this figure. He does look great both in robot mode and especially in alt mode. That's a really good interpretation of what the MH53 Pave looks like onto a toy form. But the articulation isn't all that great, like the arms aren't all that good, the hands, and some of the kibble on the robot mode I feel could be managed a little better. Now, if this figure does get a remold in the future, the question is, would he be a commander class or a leader class? And a core class remold of Scorponok would have also been great to see as well, but since the core class got canned, that is unlikely for now. Next on the list is SS10 Jazz. He's already pretty great for a figure, but it would be great to see an improved version where the backpack is managed a little better and the legs are slightly improved as well. Next on the list is SS11 Lockdown. Sure, the figure was a little hard to replicate from the actual design, and this is the best we got, but I feel like they can manage the kibble a little better as a Voyager class, but he transforms into a deluxe scale car. Figures like that have been made in the past before, and I also think it would be great if he came with not just his hook and a knife, but the head cannon as well, or at least something related to the head cannon. Next on the list, we need a remold of Brawl. Now, starting here is where I think they should bring the leader class aspect to a whole bunch of prominent Bayverse characters that were previously received a Voyager scale, starting with Brawl because I think the kibble can be managed a little better. And next would be Megatron. Again, same thing, leader class. But also this Voyager class was pretty good for its time, but I don't remember those two turrets being placed on the back, and the head sculpt could be slightly improved. It does look good on its own, but I don't think it's that accurate. And also there's some parts on the legs that should have been there but are missing. Next on the list is Ironhide. Again, he's pretty great, but there's some parts of the kibble that aren't managed, especially on the back and then those ones on his shoulders. Now, I personally think they would manage to make a pretty good Ironhide figure for the Studio Series if they gave him the scale of the leader class, which would allow more engineering when transforming this guy. But if there's ever going to be a remold, he's probably going to be a Voyager class. And next on the list is the SS-15 Bumblebee. Since he's labeled under the Bumblebee movie department, it would be great to see a remold of this, where it would be cool for it to be its own mold, but if they were to do a Bumblebee movie Bumblebee in its Camaro mode, I'm sure they just used the same mold from Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And then next is the Shadow Raider. Previously, it was just a simple repaint of the studio series Lockdown. I personally think it should be its own mold, where much like a remold of Lockdown, he would have to be a Voyager class but transform into a deluxe scale car mode. He should still come with his gun, but rather than have a whole bunch of orange paint, he should be green, as green is a little more accurate. If there were to be a remold where he ends up using the same body as Lockdown, then I guess that would be fine, as long as the head and accessories are different. Now, I didn't add the Studio Series 18 Volkswagen Bumblebee onto the list since he already is getting a remold, hence is the reason why I'm making this video actually. Next is Dropkick, great alt mode, awful robot mode. I do not like that robot mode. I could go as far to say this is my least favorite robot mode for a movie studio series figure. Also, the accessories aren't all that great either. The helicopter's fine, but I think it would also be great for them to do a remold where the robot mode is a little better. Next on the list is the KSI Sentry. The figure we have now was just a straight up reuse of the Stinger mold. I personally think this should get its own mold where he accurately transforms into the Chevy Trax, and not only comes with an extra spike piece that could be removable from the arm, he should also come with that nice rifle that he had in the movie. Next on the list is the Studio Series reissue of the mainline Last Night Bumblebee. I know this mold is pretty great for what it is, but it is a mainline figure and not a Studio Series figure. The only reason it's labeled Studio Series was that it was reissued onto that 2-pack with the Volkswagen Bumblebee. But anyways, I would love to see a remold where it uses the same engineering as the SS-49 Bumblebee, just it's reshelled because of the alt mode. And not only does he come with an extra Stinger cannon, but also a painted hammer. Again, if they do decide to do a remold of the TLK Bumblebee, there is potential. Next on the list is the World War II Bumblebee. I think it needs to be its own mold, have a better, more accurate paint. It's supposed to be somewhat of a grayish, bluish paint. And it would also be great for him to have not just one blaster accessory, but two, but also at the same time still have a hammer. Also, he would have to transform into something completely different, as what we got was not what he transformed into in the movie. Next on the list is Barricade. I guess you could say the figure is pretty good for what it is, but that transformation is very frustrating, so I feel they should remold the figure so that way the transformation isn't as frustrating as this one. Also, I think the feet should be handled a little better. Same thing with the accessory. I'm not too keen on the way the accessory looks. Next on the list, it was quite expected for Crane Case to also appear on this list, as this is basically a repaint of Crowbar, which is inaccurate because Crane Case was his own design, which would have led to the toy looking different from Crowbar. The thing is, there was already a Berserker toy, which is basically Crane Case, just a different character. So all Hasbro could have done was repaint that Berserker mold and turn him into a Crane Case figure, which is something that still can be done. I don't think anybody would complain if they were to reuse the Berserker mold. And now, next on the list is the SS-32 Optimus Prime. Yes, it's a good figure, but it is not all that accurate. There are some parts that are questionably there, like the backpack, that extra fat stored under the arms. Oh, and the truck mode isn't all that great either. I think it would be great if they could bring this guy up to the leader class scale, so they could work more on the engineering and the transformation, and perhaps make a better truck mode. Also, I think instead of just one accessory, he should come with both guns and swords. And next is Bone Crusher. He's great, but I think he needs a remold. Specifically, a leader class remold. Next is the leader class Dark of the Moon Megatron. The mold is fine itself, but I think it would be great to see a mold where it specifically handles the kibble a little better. And next on the list, since Optimus Prime would have to get a remold, so would Jetfire, so that way the combined Jet Power Prime form is a little improved. The one we have now is a bit of a step up from the original mainline one, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's still kind of inaccurate. So later in the future, it would be great to see a bit of an improvement with the combined form, whilst at the same time keeping the consistency with the transformation, the jet mode, and the robot mode. Jetfire's accessories too. Next on the list is the 36 Drift, or the TLK Drift. Not the Dinobots. I think the baby Dinobots are alright, but Drift is just a straight up reuse of the mainline Drift from 2017, and I think we need a Studio Series version where it's a completely new mold. I believe there was a leaked listing where this guy was going to be up for sale this year, but that listing got removed. I wonder if that's going to be for 2026. And I think it might be a remold, since we're doing remolds now. And since it's labeled as a deluxe, which is in the $25 price point, not however much this exclusive went for, which I'm pretty sure was a little more than $25 because of all the accessories he came with. Next on the list is Rampage, and right around this point is where I think whenever Hasbro decides to completely redo the Bayverse Constructicons, what I think they should do is do the same thing they did with the mainline Revenge of the Fallen Constructicons, where they focused on the robot mode, the alt mode, the engineering of the transformation from robot to alt mode, and the accessories. And Rampage here would most definitely need that to minimize the kibble, of course. Next on the list is the 38 Optimus Prime. Great figure, great transformation, great alt mode, but it would be great to see a better robot mode. Again, I think he should be a leader class as well. Whilst we're on the topic, I think it would be great if Hasbro also made a commander class version where he came with his trailer. Next on the list is the Studio Series Cogman. Again, much like Bumblebee and Drift, this is just a straight up reuse of the mainline version, just repainted into a superior paint scheme. Whenever or if ever the core class scale makes a return, it would be great for Hasbro to make a core class scaled Cogman, although it would be interesting how the core class scale Cogman would handle the transformation and alt mode. Next on the list is Car Mode Shatter, who I think needs a remold, specifically where the kibble is also handled better. The head sculpt, however, is completely accurate because there was like one shot where she did have this head version in the movie, but I guess it would also be cool if she had the normal head too. Next on the list is Scrap Metal. Technically, this guy counts as a concept art version since this mold is based off of the concept art version of Scrap Metal. There's a different version of Scrap Metal that was in the movie. It was basically a reuse of Scrapper, but I guess it would be cool to see both versions of Scrap Metal from the Studio series. Just they would have to transform into the same thing, meaning the Scrapper version would be its own mold and not the same Scrapper toy as Scrapper, since Scrapper did transform into something completely different. Next on the list is Long Haul. Again, great figure, but it would be great to see an improvement in the kibble management, and it would be great to see him come with removable missiles. I also think he should be in the leader class price point. Next on the list is the KSI Boss. Again, a bit of an improved paint job from the original TLK Voyager class Nitro Zeus, but again, it's a reuse of an old mainline figure. So perhaps later on in the future, it would be great to see this figure have a completely new mold. Next on the list would be the Studio Series 44 Dark of the Moon Jetwing Optimus Prime, since the Optimus Prime mold would have a leader class remold, which would have been roughly $55. It would have been nice if there was a commander class price point where there was an extra $35 price point for the trailer, the jetpack, and a little more than just 5 extra accessories. Make it happen. That would be great. If Hasbro could fit a $30 figure into a $50 leader class price point with $20 worth of extra accessories, they can most definitely fit a $55 leader onto a $90 commander class price point with an extra $35 for accessories. And whatever accessories didn't make it onto the $90 Commander class Dark of the Moon Optimus Prime, it could just be sold along with an individually released Dark of the Moon themed Leader class Optimus Prime. Next on the list is Helicopter Drift. Great figure for what it is, but again, it would be great to see a mold where the kibble management is slightly improved. Next on the list is Hightower. I think he should be remolded to a Voyager scale, and I think he should be labeled under the concept art department as well. Next on the list would be a remold of the SS-48 Transformers 3D The Ride Megatron, basically using a potential remold of the Dark of the Moon Megatron, just having a different arm, since in The Ride he did have an arm cannon. However, this remold in particular is very unlikely. Next on the list is a World War II Hot Rod, which I think should be remolded to have a better robot mode, transformation, and better alt mode, and a better selection of guns, as I think he's supposed to have 2 of them, He only came with one, but if there were to be a remold of this guy, he needs to have both of his guns. Next on the list is the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Soundwave. I guess it's a good attempt on making a Studio Series version of this figure, but I think he needs a bit of an improvement and a better kibble management. And instead of coming with a figurine of Laserbeak, I think he should come with both of his whatever those type of guns were called. Oh, and Laserbeak should be his own core class if core class ever makes a return. Next on the list is the triplets from Revenge of the Fallen. They're pretty good for what they are, but it would be great for them to have their own core class scale where the transformation, alt mode, and robot modes are slightly improved. Again, this is if the core class ever comes back. They would also have to kind of be bigger for all of that improvement, too. Next on the list is Constructicon Mixmaster. Better backpack, better accessories, and better shield system, please. Let's be honest, this guy didn't have any accessories to begin with, but nonetheless, in the future, a remold of this figure would be great. Next on the list is SS54 2007 Megatron. Since the chest and the kibble management on the legs would have to be improved, I personally think this should be thrown into the leader class scale. I'm sure this figure would look so much better in that scale, as long as he comes with just more than the mace. I hope he comes with his fusion cannon. Next on the list is Scavenger. I personally think they should bring him up to the commander class scale if they were to ever do a remold. If he already looks this great in the leader class scale, just imagine what he would look like as a commander class, perhaps an improved alt mode and a slightly improved robot mode as well. Oh, and I think he should have the Demolisher color scheme. Next on the list is Scrapper, already a great figure as is, but the alt mode is a little meh. Perhaps a slightly improved alt mode would be great, and it would have been cool if he came with an extra chain accessory, and it would have also been cool if his right arm was able to be removed. You probably know where I'm going with this. Next on the list is a remold of the Studio Series Sentinel Prime. Again, a pretty great figure for what it is. But I feel like the kibble management could be slightly handled a little better if it was under the leader class scale. And with the leader class scale, it would have also been great if he came with a little more accessories than just his double-bladed sword. That being the rust gun and of course his shield, perhaps a pillar or two. Next on the list would be the Revenge of the Fallen version of Soundwave. Come on, they gotta do this figure better. I guess you could say the stand accessory was cool, but the transformation was just very uninteresting and a little too straightforward, so I feel like in the future a remold of this figure would be great, especially if it's a little bit improved. Next on the list is the Bumblebee movie Cliffjumper. Again, there's a problem with this figure with the kibble. I guess it's fine as it is, but if there were to be a remold in the future that handles the kibble a little better, that would be great. And I guess aside from the Stinger cannon, it would have been cool if he came with those extra blaster accessories for the alt mode. And I guess this remold could be used as a Bumblebee figure later, or perhaps a Bumblebee figure remold would come out first and then Cliffjumper. I guess time will tell. Next on the list, if Overload ever does get a remold in the future, it would be great if he had his crab-like legs and perhaps a little more accessories, maybe some missiles for his shoulders or something, or at least whatever he had in the concept art. Next on the list is Devastator. Great combiner overall, but hear me out on this. If Hasbro were to ever do a remold of Studio Series Devastator, I think they should just have him as a Titan class scale, where he separates into a whole bunch of body parts that transform into alt modes, and then that's it. There's no robot modes for those extra body parts, just those vehicle modes that transform into the combiner modes and combine to form Devastator, just like how it was back in 2009 with the Supreme Class Devastator. Only this time around, Devastator has 10 construction vehicles combining into him at once. It's a cool idea, but I may be the only one on board with this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Next is Jolt. I personally think the kibble on this figure makes it really hard to move his legs around. I suppose the arms are fine, but the kibble overall is really annoying for this guy. So whenever Hasbro decides to do a remold, that's if they do a remold of this figure, I hope the kibble is managed a little better. Next on the list is SS79, which is basically a reuse of the original mainline toy. I think this figure needs its own mold in the Studio Series, which I guess the engineering could be a reuse of the SS49 Bumblebee. It's just the car kibble on that figure would have to be completely reshelled for the 1960s Camaro version, which I'm okay with. and I'm sure the accessory would be the same as SS-49's accessory. And next on the list would be Galvatron. I know that the Voyager class is already a pretty great improvement from the original mainline toy, but I feel the scale might be off when comparing this guy to the upcoming Age of Extinction Leader class Optimus Prime. If that is the case, I feel like in the future this figure should be put into the Leader class scale, which I'm sure would minimize the kibble just a little better. I'm aware that the alt mode would look a little bigger, and perhaps would come with just a little more accessories. What I mean by that is not just coming with one set of missile launchers like he did in the Voyager class, but two for the Leader class. After all, he did have two sets of missiles in the movie. Next on the list is Crosshairs. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. The CGI animation is already pretty hard to replicate into figure form, so this is what they came up with overall. That's why in the next 8 years or so, whenever technology is, well, hopefully technology is a little more advanced in the future, so will the kibble management be if this figure ever does get a remold, whilst retaining the accuracy of the alt mode. Next on the list is Air Razor. Well, specifically the alt mode and perhaps a different paint scheme. But anyways, for the alt mode, it was a little based off of the concept art version, so it would be great if there was an alt mode for this figure where it was a little more accurate to the CGI model that we saw in the movie. And next on the list is the Core Class RC. I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. This is probably the worst Studio Series Core Class figure out there. I personally feel like this figure should be brought up to the deluxe scale, just a bit of a tiny deluxe. There have been tiny deluxes in the past, such as the 86 Bumblebee, so I'm sure Hasbro would be able to do something where they can make a deluxe scale RC from Rise of the Beasts. Just make it happen. This Core Class is not going to cut it. And same thing with the Weaponizers version 2. Oh, and if there is a remold, I just hope she comes with both guns and not just one. Next on the list is the Rise of the Beast version of Bumblebee, but not for the reason you think. Since there's an off-road version of this figure, I think it would be cool if there was the normal Camaro version of this figure as well. Next on the list is Scourge. He was based off of early concept art before the movie came out, and I guess he's an okay figure. He's still pretty great. But in the future, I would still like to see the accurate version. Next on the list is Nightbird. She's great, but small and too kibble loaded, I guess you could say that. So in the future, it would be great to see a little bit more of a slightly upscaled deluxe class Nightbird with a little more kibble management going on. And most importantly, she should come with 2 bigger wings and a pair of 2 swords. And lastly on this list, Studio Series Mirage. Aside from a Lamborghini, Ferrari, and a garbage truck remold of this figure, it would be great for Hasbro to go back and redo the Porsche mold, where the robot mode is a little better and the kibble management is a little more improved, whilst at the same time retaining the accuracy of the car mode for licensing reasons, of course. It's something that would be great to see in the future, but that's probably very unlikely. Let me know in the comments if you guys think this figure should get a remold. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this crazy list of figures that I personally think should get remolds. I think that was a little over 55 figures. But anyways, there were some figures that I purposefully left out because I think they're alright, I guess, like the Wreckers, some of the Dreads, and of course Sideswipe. But let me know in the comments which figure that I did not include in my list that you guys would like to see get a remold in the future. Also let me know in the comments down below which figure you guys think shouldn't get a remold that I did include on this list that I think should get a remold. But with that being said, if you like what you saw in this video, be sure to slam that like button, share this with your friends as well, turn on post notifications so that way you don't miss another upload. Let me know how I did in this relatively long edited checklist, and most importantly, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. Teo!